Sunny beaches, summer theater, the great outdoors. That's how most of us think of places like Huron County in July and August. But that's not what's top of mind for those dealing with the very real problem of addiction that's become a pressing issue in many parts of southwestern Ontario. Joining us now for more from our studio at Western University in London, our Southwestern Hub's journalist, Mary Baxter. Welcome, Mary.
Thanks, Jan.
Now, last year, you wrote a story on the addiction issues in that area. What should people know about that?
Well, the story that I wrote, I started off looking at the opioid crisis. That's what had inspired the story, to just look to see what is it like in rural areas. But what I found in Huron County was that alcohol actually is a big issue there. 1 out of 4 people in the county, according to Statistics Canada, has said they are heavy drinkers. Another issue that's going on in the county is the rise of the use of crystal meth. Crystal meth has been around certainly for a long time, and there has been a lot of use of it in southwestern Ontario. There's already been a long-standing issue, but there are some people who are trying to help people with addictions are noticing that its use is rising again.
Tell me about the services available for people who have addictions in the Huron County area.
Well, they've been working through the development of the opioid strategy, which has been led by the Huron County Health Unit. They've been working on shoring up their resources, because the challenges in a rural area, one thing is distance. It's very difficult to seek help if you're living in a very small community and you don't have access to a vehicle or something like that, because a lot of these services are concentrated more in larger centers. So in Huron County, that would be Cottage. There are services there. There's certainly counseling and outreach services. There's a needle exchange program, for instance. There is some methadone dispensation that happens, but they're in different areas of the county, which makes it kind of difficult to reach. And then there are some obvious gaps as well. So for instance, the county doesn't have a detox center.
Now, what's happened with these issues since you published your story last year?
They've been moving ahead with the developing the opioid prevention strategy, and that's a province-wide initiative. All of the health units in the province are working on these strategies. What it's done in Huron County, because the issue of opioid addiction isn't as concerning as it is in other areas at this point, they're preparing to make sure that it never becomes an issue. But at the same time, while they're doing this, they're able to knit together a lot of the services that they have and create better communication amongst all of them. They've discovered through the development of the strategy there were silos between the different deliveries of healthcare, and so this has helped them to communicate better. So for instance, a couple of months ago there was a scare about carfentanil coming into the county, and because their communications about these issues have become so much stronger, they were able to send word out to people who are using drugs very quickly and to warn them and alert them of this situation. There's also a really interesting survey that's been underway both in Huron, Perth, and somewhat in Grey and Bruce. It's been led by the Feng Chang. She's from the School of Pharmacy at University of Waterloo, and also the Gateway Centre of Excellence in Rural Health in Seaforth. And they've been looking at opioid issues with rural youth. They have discovered some. It has more to do with using pills, so something like Percocet. And they're looking at what the barriers might be, and also what ways they can work together to address those. And as well, a family, the Steffler family, a Huron County family, has stepped forward and is looking at trying to develop a youth treatment center for the county, and that happened just shortly after my article was published. They announced that they lost their son to addiction.
Now, this isn't a Huron problem this is a bigger problem in Ontario as well.
Yes, for sure. And I've been working on looking at this issue throughout the Southwest. So for instance, in Norfolk County, which has one of the highest rates of opioid addiction in our region, and I think actually in the province, there's been some issues to do with how do you locate methadone clinics, and how do you locate them in the places where people can actually use them.
Well, thank you, Mary. We will keep an eye on that very important issue. Always a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks, Jan.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.